Hey folks, want to talk a little bit about basic essay structure. This is actually a presentation I give in 101, so it should be a bit of a refresher, but just in case you need to start thinking about this for writing a paper, thought this might be useful. Okay, some real basics about your essays. Okay, number one, there's an introduction. Number two, there's a body. Number three, there's a conclusion. You guys have been taught this for a long time. Now, I am going to go about trying to think about this in a slightly different way than you've been taught, but basically, that idea is the same. Okay. Of course, in that introduction, we've got a thesis statement. Okay. There are three criteria for the thesis statement, and this is the most important thing I want you to take away this week. Number one, it must be a statement. If you've ever had a teacher tell you, oh, you can go ahead and ask a question as your thesis statement, they almost always go poorly. So I'm going to recommend say that it must be a statement, not a question. Number two, it should be a testable statement. I'll give you an example of that in a minute here and what exactly that means, but it's got to be testable. And finally, it should indicate or suggest how you're planning on testing it. So here's an example. Okay. Number one, Alan Greenspan was a good chairman of the Federal Reserve. Okay, that is a statement. I think there's no question mark at the end. There's no who or what or why at the beginning. That's definitely a statement, but it's not testable, and it's not testable really because of the word good. You can't test whether someone is a good anything. Okay, what we define as good varies from person to person. However, Alan Greenspan's fiscal policies had a positive impact on the economy that is testable. We can figure out whether or not the policies that Alan Greenspan put into play when he was the head of the Federal Reserve had a good or a negative impact on the economy. Or positive or negative, I should say. However, what would make it better is to sort of suggest how we're going to test it. Alan Greenspan's fiscal policies directly caused home ownership to rise and made a middle-class lifestyle affordable to more people than ever before. What it tells us is we're going to be measuring whether or not Alan Greenspan's fiscal policies had a positive impact based upon the whole notion of home ownership and the development of a stronger middle-class lifestyle. If you guys remember your high school teachers telling you all about, thesis statement should be, oh, computers are really interesting because they A, B, and C, or whatever. The reason they did that is they wanted you to suggest how you were going to test your thesis statement. That's a very clunky, very awkward way to do it. What I've done here is a lot better and is going to create a lot more interesting and detailed paper. But the idea behind it is the same. All right. The body of your paper should have supporting paragraphs. These supporting paragraphs, I always ask students, well, what's this doing? And they say, oh, it's supporting us. Well, how is it supporting? Think about some specific things here. Number one, examples. You can point to something in the text. For your first essay, that's something you're going to have to do. You might use personal experiences. That won't be particularly helpful for this essay, but it might be in some upcoming ones. Hypothetical situations. That might be useful for this essay. You could consider how a potential reader or a presumed reader might respond to an author's use of appeal or a typical type of logic. And then finally, analysis. And this paper should go heavy on the analysis. What's the result? In other words, the author does this with his or her writing. What's the result of that? How does the reader respond in a different way than he or she would have if the author had done something different? Okay, I want to see a lot of analysis in your body paragraphs. All right, and finally, conclusions. Everybody has been taught by some high school teacher at some point that your conclusion should restate your thesis. Please don't do that. Please do not summarize everything you've said in the course of the paper. You guys aren't writing papers that are so long you need to do that. If you're writing extremely long papers, yes, fine, it makes perfect sense to do some summary. But for the most part, if you do any summary, single sentence will do it, and you certainly don't need to restate your thesis. What you do need to do is to actually show the conclusion of the testing of your thesis statement. In other words, if you make a claim in your thesis statement, what's the end result of it? If you prove it true, how does that change the way we understand things? In other words, how, for the case of this essay, how do we understand the text differently because of what you've shown us is the case? This is a very quick overview, but I'm hoping it's useful. If you've got any questions, as always, don't hesitate to let me know. I'll talk to you soon.